another soul sharpening seminar on the topic why your mental health matters. I'll be your moderator for today's session. My name is Alicia Kujo, the head of operations of IoD-Gh. So we'll have the program outline. So the program outline, so we'll do admin directives, followed by an opening remarks by the president of the institute, Mrs. Mary Asare-Yeboah. Then we'll go to the introduction of the speaker by the CEO of IoD-Gh. Then we'll have the presentation. Then we'll have a Q&A session, a closing remarks by Mr. Michael Jasasashon, the VP. Then we'll bring the session to a close at 2 p.m. So the admin directives, please. All right, so as we're waiting for the admin directive to be projected, this session is a virtual session, so we kindly encourage our members to mute their microphone when they are not speaking, and we should try to be mindful of our background noises when we have to speak. In case you want to show your camera, please make sure the camera is well positioned, and let's try as much as possible to avoid distraction. If you have any question or chat in the course of the presentation, kindly leave it in the chat box. And please note that the recording of this seminar will be shared on the IoD platforms. In case you have any challenge or you need an assistance, kindly call us on 0240 714 798 or 0302 732269. So we encourage all participants on the call to follow us on our social media handles, on our YouTube page, Facebook, LinkedIn, X, Instagram, and our Telegram pages. So as said earlier, if you need any assistance or further information, kindly contact the Secretariat on +233 0302 732269 or +233 0240 714 798 or send us an email to info@iodghana.org. So on this note, it is my privilege to invite the president of IoD-Gh in the person of Mrs. Mary Asare-Yeboah to give us the opening remarks. Thank you. Ma'am, please, I yield to you.
Thank you very much, Celestia. And good afternoon to you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I acknowledge all of you here present and those here to join, I'm sure. And I acknowledge the Vice President, Mr. Michael Jasasashon, council members, both current and past. I acknowledge all of you. I do hope that you've all noticed that our logo has turned pink, and it's in honor of the observance of October as generally a health month and also health on women issues and other health awareness programs. Well, since 1992, October 10 has been marked yearly as World Mental Health Day. The day was established to raise global awareness on mental health issues. Mental health involves our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It influences our perception, behavior, and interpersonal relationships. A healthy mind is extremely important for an individual to function well in the family, in the workplace, in the community and society at large. Just as the body requires care and attention, so too does the mind. Mental health is therefore not a luxury. It is a fundamental necessity. That is why today's theme, why mental health matters, or why your mental health matters, is so important and deserves our fullest engagement. I am delighted that Dr. Senna Owusu-Gibson will help us explore and understand why paying closer attention to our mental health matter. And on this note, I invite our CEO, Dr. Alfred Brima, to introduce the speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam President. So please, with your permission, I would like to introduce the speaker on behalf of the CEO.
Oh, let me just say very quickly. Actually, I should have said so. The CEO is engaged in a very important assignment, hence his inability to join us personally. So yes, Celestia, thank you very much for stepping in.
Thank you so much, Ma, for the opportunity. So please, just a brief introduction of our speaker. She's in the person of Dr. Senna Owusu-Gibson, as counseling psychologist, administrator, certified collective leadership, and a lecturer with over 2 decades of experience in public service, mental health, advocacy, and academic mentorship. She holds a PhD in counseling psychology with a specialization in clinical psychology, counseling, and has contributed to national policy development, institutional reforms, and capacity building initiatives. Her multidisciplinary background enriched her holistic approach to human development and collaboration across sectors and cultures. Madam Senna combines academic depth with practical experience and is passionate about advancing initiatives that promote holistic well-being and systematic change. She has been a member of the GPA since 2013. She's also a member of IoD-Gh. She enjoys solitude, observing nature, reading, or experimenting with new recipes. On this note, we invite Madam Senna Owusu-Gibson, PhD, to take over the presentation. Madam, please, you have the microphone.
All right. Thank you so much, Celestia. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to take this opportunity to thank the President for charging me to take up this role. And I also want to acknowledge the CEO and state that all protocols observed. I don't want to go through all the chain of command, so kindly permit me to use the word all protocols observed and proceed with my presentation. So thank you so much for this opportunity. All right, so I'll proceed to share my screen. Okay. All right, so like I mentioned, I'm going to take us through the global statistics on mental health. I'll bring it down to the local statistics and then connect it to how it affects us in our corporate institutions, in the boardroom, and in the various places where we function as professionals. All right, so Globally, it is estimated that over 1 billion people are affected with mental health conditions or live with a mental health condition. And this costs the global world over trillion, 1 trillion in productivity. So the financial cost of the financial burden is 1 trillion annually. Now, the statistics also shows that those with severe mental health conditions die earlier than the general population, 10 to 20 years earlier than the general population. Good. And mental health conditions, it's also the second leading cause of long-term disability globally. So what I'm trying to do is to paint a picture for us about what the mental health condition is and what it causes us. Now let's bring it home, bringing home to Ghana. So again, the global statistics shows that 2.2 million Ghanaians currently live with a mental health condition. So if you situate it here, that means that 1 out of 4 Ghanaians are likely to experience a mental health challenge in their lifetime. When it comes to the economic burden, the statistics shows that Ghana loses 7% of its GDP annually to mental health conditions. Okay. All right. So with that said, let's look at how the World Health Organization defines mental health and then see where we fall in now. So the World Health Organization defines mental health as a state of mental well-being that enables individuals to cope with the normal stresses of life, realize their potential, learn and work well, and contribute meaningfully to their community. So that means that if an individual is unable to do any of this to cope with the stresses of life, realize their potential, learn and work well, and contribute meaningfully to their community, they may have a mental health challenge. Now, let's again bring it down. If connecting the dots, so it here then means that if we take 1 out of 4 Ghanaians, or if we take the total population of Ghanaians, 1 out of 4 may, in the course of their lifetime, be unable to cope with the normal stresses of life. They may be unable to realize their potential. They may be unable to learn and work well, and they may be unable to contribute meaningfully to society. Let's again bring it down to the boardroom. So now, within the boardroom or a leadership corporate world, it means that if we take 1 in 4 people in our organizations, or in the boardroom, in leadership positions, 1 out of 4 of such people will be unable to cope with the normal challenges of life. They'll be unable to realize their potential. They will be unable to learn and work well, and they will be unable to contribute meaningfully to their community or the organization in which they find themselves. And that is the glaring statistics there. Now, let's look at the age factor when it comes to mental health conditions. Again, the statistics is showing that 18 to 15 age ranges, that is the age range, which accounts for 36.2%, suffer from some mental health condition. Okay. Or the peak for mental health conditions is within these ranges, the age ranges. And then we have 26 to 49 age range, which constitutes 29.4%. Now put this percentage together, if you and I are doing the math, that is over 60% of individuals with a mental health or who may have a mental health condition within our society, and they may be in our corporate organizations in the boardroom. Now, when you take this age range, you realize that this signifies the peak or the workforce that we operate with. So within our workforce, these are the age ranges that we see. So meaning that there may be mental health conditions in our workplaces, or maybe not even that there may be, there certainly is some mental health conditions within our workspaces, in our corporate rooms. Again, let's bear in mind the 1 in 4 statistics that I just talked about. So that means that in our corporate world, in our boardrooms, in our homes, in the various places where we find ourselves and relate with people, there is a likelihood that we may have some people struggling with mental health challenge. And the 1 in 4 is a factor that we should keep in mind. Good. Now, why does mental health matter? And we've come from keeping those statistics in our mind. So within the corporate world, in our boardrooms, in our workspaces and other places, our leaders or leadership board members are supposed to take strategic decisions, okay? They take strategic oversight that is setting the organizational long-term vision and goals, and also determine the strategic vision and direction of the organization. Within organization or within the boardroom and leadership roles, we have fiduciary duties, which entails acting in the best interest of the organization and ensuring financial integrity and legal compliance. We also have executive supervision roles, which is the role of leadership. Risk management is also another role, and then advocacy and ambassadorship or any other duties among many others. So if you take such individuals, there is a need for such people, which includes you and I, to be able to have clarity of thought. And because of the roles we perform, we need cognitive clarity of thought. That is to be able to take better decisions, sharpen our skills, be innovative, and then strategic in the proposals and in the things that we bring across in the boardrooms and in trying to manage our organization. There's almost also the need, or it also requires emotional regulation in order for me to be able to build stronger team dynamics and to be able to manage the various people that I work with. The positions we find ourselves in require emotional regulation, emotional intelligence, my ability to know when to step in and when to step back, when to guide, when to, and even when and how to be able to communicate my disappointments and misgivings to a subordinate and all that. It requires emotion regulation. Inability to do that may cause a lot of dissatisfaction within our teams. It also requires resilience. So if I am a board member, an executive director, a CEO, I find myself in a leadership position, I must be able to adapt to changing situations and changing conditions. And so it behoves on me to be able to be in a position or in a mental state of mind that allows me to bounce back from any misfortune or any tragedy that a company at any point may find itself in. And then it also enhances the work that we do by reducing debt, making sure that companies do not run into areas that may render us or bring financial cost to the company. Now, the question we want to ask ourselves is, can we truly lead, serve, or innovate when our minds are burdened? Okay, that's the question. Can we truly lead or serve when our minds are burdened? Just a minute. Obviously, no. The response is no. So if my mind is burdened, if I have challenges with my cognition, with my emotions, with my thoughts, and even with my behavior, I may be unable to lead and even to direct, to even work or form a team that do the work that is required of me as a board member, as a director, as a team lead, or wherever I find myself. So now we've been talking about mental health, and so let's try to recognize the signs of mental health challenge. So what do we say when we say someone is having a mental health challenge? Again, mental health challenges often manifest as changes in thoughts, affect, and behavior. And I think in the director's introduction, she mentioned that it has to do with, basically has to do with our thought, affect, and behavior. So if I'm having changes in my thoughts, changes in my affect, the way I feel towards myself, towards other people, towards my environment, or even in my behavior, I may be battling with a mental health challenge. Now, that is not even alone. That is not enough criteria to determine whether I'm having a mental health challenge. So these changes that are occurring to me, the changes that are happening in my thoughts, in my affect, in my behavior, are not due to medication that I'm taking. So if you are taking some medication for one condition or the other, you may have changes, cognitive challenges, because some medication can result in changes in your thinking pattern. You may have hallucinations, you may have negative thoughts about yourself and all that. So some medications can result in changes in your thoughts, and then it may also affect your emotions. You may become more irritable, you may have mood swings, or you may experience some numbness emotionally. And then behaviorally, it may also affect you. So we want to rule out that the changes you are experiencing are not as a result of medication you are taking, one. It may not be as a result of another illness. So maybe you have a condition, and that's the changes occurring are not as a result of that medical condition that you have or the medication you are taking. Or the third one, it may not be as a result of oh my goodness. Okay, let me go on. So there are three things to clarify. It's the changes in your emotion, changes in your thought, changes in your emotion, and changes in your behavior. The change is not due to illness, it's not due to medication that you are taking. Okay, all right. And so once we rule this out, and then the change also doesn't cause dysfunction, doesn't render you dysfunctional occupationally, doesn't render you dysfunctional academically and socially. Okay, and again, there is another factor we have to look at, the duration. So how long have you experienced this change? 1 month, 2 months, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, on a daily basis. So that is also a factor to consider when we want to clarify or determine whether you have a mental health condition or not. All right, good. So now that I can clarify or determine whether I have a mental health condition or not, what action should I take to help myself out? Okay, so I have done the analysis. I have gone through, done my assessment. I'm able to conclude that, okay, there are some changes going on with me. I am beginning to experience thoughts that I wasn't having before, that are deviant from my normal self. So the thoughts that are beginning to think more negatively about myself and about other people. I'm having concentration problems. I'm having problems focusing. I'm having issues with my perception, how I used to interpret the things that are going on around me. And then I also think that I'm having issues with my emotions, mood swings that are happening, irritability, and this change that I'm experiencing. I'm able to establish that it is deviant, it is unlike me, it's different from who I was or who I used to be, and my behavior also is deviant. That means that it's different from who I was or who I used to be. I can establish that fact, and it has happened for a certain duration, some number of weeks, days, months. The changes that are happening to me render me or renders me dysfunctional, then I'm beginning to conclude that maybe I may have a mental health condition. And we came from a certain background before we go to that. If you're having a mental health challenge, you may be unable to cope with the normal stresses of life. You may be unable to realize your own potential, and then you may be unable to learn well and work well on your own. And then finally, you may be unable to contribute meaningfully to your life, to community, and to society. So once I can establish this on my own, or I have possibly gone through some assessment and it's been established that I have a mental health condition, then I must be able to seek help. And these are the suggested things that you can do. Okay, so you conduct a self-assessment, and that is what I do. I mentioned earlier, sorry, that you do your own self-assessment. You are asking yourself questions. What is happening to me? Am I experiencing changes in my thoughts? I can establish that. So I have gone through that, and I am not justifying the fact that there are changes that are happening to me. I have accepted that emotionally I'm experiencing a change. I'm beginning to feel more angry, or I am beginning to feel more sad, because the statistics also shows that a lot of the mental health conditions that are, or common mental health conditions, are depression, anxiety, and then the third, but most of them is anxiety and depression, and then neurological disorders. Okay, and then substance abuse. So I have established the fact that things are not going well with me in that cortex. And so on my own, I want to seek help. So that is my own self-assessment. The next thing I want to do is take a mental health status exam and seek early intervention. Because what we know with mental health condition is the fact that just like any physical health condition, when you detect it early, you are able to find help, to curtail it progressing to a more serious condition. And so if I suspect that I may be experiencing some changes in my thoughts, efforts, and behavior, then I want to subject myself to some mental health examination. Sometimes you may not even necessarily need to have a problem to subject yourself to mental health examination. Just like you do with your physical health, you do your annual checks, you go to the hospital to just do general checkup. You could also walk into any medical setup, any private practitioner's office, and ask to take a mental status examination. They are just basic questions here and there, one or two, answer yes, no, and they're able to interpret and tell whether you may have some mental health condition, not necessarily a mental health condition, but whether you're in the right state of mind at that particular point in time. And that will help you decide whether you want to seek early help, but the advice is for you to seek early help. You don't have any choice if it is determined that you have something that may be bothering you at a particular moment in time. It may not necessarily be a mental health illness, okay? But we all do experience some overwhelming emotions at one point in our lifetime. We all do experience situations that you are able to think thoroughly about, and we may need someone to guide us through the process. We experience things that overwhelm us. We experience uncertainties in life and all that. So there is a need for you, if you find out that, okay, at this particular moment in time, I do not have what it takes to go through this phase, to take this decision. I may need someone to help me think through it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have a mental health condition. You're just seeking help to go through a certain phase of your life. Okay, so seeing a practitioner or a professional does not necessarily mean that you have a mental health condition. Remember, I talked about duration. So if whatever you're experiencing hasn't been for a very long period of time, it doesn't render you dysfunctional occupationally, academically, and socially, there's no need for alarm. Okay. And then you also want to prioritize your sleep, because it's been found that lack of sleep can have a major toll on your cognitive abilities, can affect your emotions, and it even can affect your behavior, because everything, it goes in that cyclical manner, thought, affect, and behavior. So if it affects your thoughts, it affects your emotions, and it affects your behavior, it becomes bothersome. And so there's a need for you to prioritize your sleep so that it doesn't have any negative effect on your cognition, your emotion, and your behavior. Okay. And exercise, you also learn that exercise improves your mood. And once you're in a good mood, you're likely to get your job done and also function well as an individual. Reflection is another thing you can do. Okay. So, and then we also encourage you to speak up. So, like I said, mental health, like physical health, progresses if you don't seek early help. If I'm able to subject myself to help at a very early stage of whatever I find myself in, I'm able to receive the necessary help to sail through that phase. So you want to speak up, talk to someone, share your story, a trusted person. Talk to someone who may not necessarily, like I mentioned, what you need is emotional support, psychological support. So maybe someone who is willing to help you. So you want to speak up, not only to your friends, but also to a professional. You want to engage in some healing practices. Prayer, exercise is one of them. Connection with, and this is one thing I said, there are people who never connect with themselves. So you want to connect with yourself by doing self-assessment. Who am I? These are questions that we've never asked ourselves. Some people have never sat down to ask themselves, who am I? Where am I going? Sometimes we think that these are basic questions for young people, and we have grown, and we are not, we are above asking ourselves such questions. But it's a good point to every now and then connect with yourself, to do some self-reflection. Ask yourself very personal questions to help you ground yourself, ground your senses, and know where you find yourself at a particular moment in time. Seek professional help is what I've reiterated over and over. So you want to speak to a counselor. So when you realize that you're overwhelmed by those things, it has taken you a period of time, it's affecting you, it's affecting your work, your social functioning, it's affecting your academics and any other aspect of your life for that matter. You want to seek professional help by speaking to a counselor. You have pastoral counselors as well, pastoral care, and then some other support groups that you may have. Pursuing hobbies is also another way to help yourself manage your mental health challenges or be in a good state mentally. And pursue hobbies, you may be able to learn new skills. And I keep saying that some of us don't have any hobbies, but it is very important that for us to have hobbies. And so if you don't have one, you can always learn something new, like sewing. You can learn just something to take you away from the very thing that you may be experiencing, distraction techniques, some of the things that they may be burdensome to you. You want to learn some new skills. And these days, social media makes it, and the internet, social media and the internet makes it very easy for us to learn a lot of new skills without having to pay for it. And so you want to spend some time to learn. It's not too late for us to learn how to sew, how to even operate various gadgets, how to play an instrument, or anything that puts us in a good mood or helps us to divert our attention from the negative and overwhelming emotions that we may be experiencing at one particular moment in time. It is never too late to learn a new skill. So if you find yourself, even for instance, in a workspace where the situations in the workspace it's overwhelming for you, and you find out that your energy levels are low. You also find out that you are not possibly living up to what you perceive you should be living up to. It is or below your cognitive or intellectual abilities, you're performing below that. You want to find an outlet. You can choose to learn a new skill, and that will help you as well. Another thing that you may want to do is to limit screen time. That is one thing that currently is taking away a lot of our, it's causing us a lot of cognitive burden, mental burden. And so you want to limit some screen time and take some social media breaks, okay? Because the more you spend time on social media, your vision is being affected, your spinal cord spondylosis, your spinal cord is being affected because you find yourself always in a certain position. You are also influenced by a lot of negativity. A lot of people are taking in so much pressure from social media, wanting to be what they are not. And so that alone, may have a lot of effects on your cognition and may cause you emotional stress. Okay. So you want to take some break. You want to limit your screen time. The screen time is also not allowing people to sleep. And as long as you're not sleeping, you find yourself having some mental challenges. You may not be in the best state of mind to do what you have to do. So you want to limit your screen time and divert those time to doing something more productive that fits your emotional, repertoire, fits your mind and also gets you to be in a better state of mind. And then finally, I want to talk about, there are so many others we can do, but within this space, I want to talk about delegating effectively and empower your team. And so when we talk about delegation, some of us find it very difficult to cede work to our subordinates. We think that everything must be around us. We are unable to trust that should we commit the work to this other person, they'll be able to do it effectively. And so we stay in our workplaces. We don't take annual leave. We don't take any form of break. And we can't delegate because we think that the people may not do the work as effectively as we would have loved it done. But delegating work takes some pressure off you and puts you in a position to relax, knowing that the work will be done and done effectively. Okay. But again, if you don't delegate well, you may end up coming back to do the work yourself and even doing it, putting much more pressure, stress and pressure on yourself. So you want to make sure that you empower your team, the people who work with you. You want to empower them in such a way that if you're not there today, the work can still go on and be done more effectively. So if you find yourself in a place where you're unable to delegate because you think that your team is ineffective, then you have some questions to answer in there and you may be burdening yourself more than necessary. So you want to put in these actions to ensure that you are in the right state of mind. It is not exhaustive. There are more things that we can do, but again, because of time, maybe during the question, you can do journaling, which is one thing you can also do. I talked about exercise and several other things that you can do to put yourself in the best state of mind to make sure that you are operating at your optimum. Right. So in conclusion, all right. So mental health challenges pose a risk to individuals and organizations. So just as we care for our physical health, we must tend to our mental health as well. Mental health should be a strategic priority. And as mentioned, early detection and intervention prevent long-term disability. So you want to make sure that you are doing your assessment and seeking early help. So let's move from awareness to action for ourselves, our teams, and communities. I mean, there is no health without mental health. So mental health matters. Let us be doers and not hearers only. Thank you very much. I will now take questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Senna Owusu Gibson, for this insightful presentation. So please, it's a Q&A session. So please, if you have a question, just raise your hand. We'll call you, or you can leave the message in the chat box. Okay, there's no question in the chat box yet. Please, the floor is open for questions. Okay, there's a hand up. Yes, Madam President, please go for it.
Thank you, Celestia. And thank you very much, Dr. Senna Owusu Gibson. My question actually relates to the stigma. The stigma that, we generally find and it's difficult to go on and say, okay, I'm going to see someone because I think there is some mental issue going on with me. And because of that, most people will not approach anywhere near either a counselor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, none of those places will we find ourselves. Can you speak to the issue of stigma and how we can deal with that to overcome, those sentiments that are generally shared? Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Madam President. So when it comes to stigma around mental health, this is what I say. So mental health or mental illness is just like any physical illness that we have. So if someone with diabetes, hypertension, or any other kidney problems, or any other physical health issue for that matter, it's able to walk freely into a hospital or talk freely about their condition, why does it become a bother for us or for anyone with a mental health condition to do so? Because of stigma. But the point is not to feel ashamed to do so. But the point is that if someone has a problem with the kidney, it's a part of the body. Stomach, it's a part of the body. Where else? Asthma, chest is a part of the body. So any place where you have a condition is a part of the body. So why should having a mental health issue, which is also part of the body, be a problem for us? And so I encourage people that see mental health conditions. You are the one in the situation. You are the one having a condition. See mental health illness like any other illness, because the head is also part of the body. Emotions are all part of the body. Whatever I do behaviorally, it's part of my body. And so if someone with any other physical condition, it's not ashamed to talk about their condition, why should he be ashamed to talk about condition? So it's empowering to own your situation. It's empowering to accept that this is what my situation is. And if none of these people are mocked or are stigmatized for having this condition, I shouldn't also feel bad about myself for having a mental health condition. And so and there's one magic about owning your own situation, accepting that this is what I have. If you're able to own it and to accept it, unlike faith preachers will tell us, don't own it and don't say I have it. But you can run away from a situation that you already have. So if you're able to own it and be bold about it, no amount of words from any other person would make you feel bad about yourself. So as long as you come to that point of accepting your situation, owning it, I don't think that you have to prepare your mind and your emotions to accept the fact that this is who I am, this is where I find myself. I will seek help, I will own it, and no one else can make you feel bad about yourself if you own the situation. Again, for the people let me speak to the people who stigmatize. Is it because in our society, we think that if someone is struggling with a mental health condition, the word wabodam, it's common. The person is mad. The person is not normal. It's what we throw at people. But the truth of the matter is, it is not, mental health illness doesn't mean that you are mad. And so if we understand it within that context, it shouldn't be shaming for us to seek help. So you yourself will have to accept that I have a mental health condition doesn't mean that I am mad. It's not at all. And so that's my basic response to that question. Madam President.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sana. So we have a question in the chat box. The person said, please share more on the process involved in mental screening. That's one question.
Okay.
The process involved.
Okay, so if you have a mental health problem, or even if you don't, you just want to go to the hospital and ask for screening. So there are several things that we may do. You may be given a test tool to respond to, or the the practitioner may just ask you basic questions to assess your ability to respond to them, to assess your mental state, so your emotional state, so and then your so emotional and your mental state. So most often it just comes to asking you questions or administering a test to you. And when it comes to mental state examination, we rely, I keep saying that for those of us in the space, we do not conduct tests, blood works like the doctors will do. So what you tell us is what we depend on, we follow on. So if you are genuine and truthful in your response to such questions, the practitioner may be able to help you know that, okay, there is something wrong here with me, or there's something going on here. But if you decide not to tell the truth, because these are self-assessments, you're supposed to, give your own responses. So if you choose not to give the right responses or present a different state, like you go to the hospital and tell the doctor, I have stomach ache, when you know you have headache. So at the end of the day, the response may not be, or the result may not be a reflection of what the situation is. So we encourage you to respond to those questions and those questionnaires truthfully, and that will help the practitioner to know what your mental state is.
Thank you very much, Ma. Before I call on Madam Patricia to ask a question, there is another question in the chat box saying, not staying for long hours on social media or screen time. What if the things I'm watching makes me happy?
Okay.
I'm sure the person is referring to the statement that you made that you shouldn't spend more hours on the screen or social media. So he said, if those things make him or her happy.
Okay. So it's like saying that because food makes me happy, I can eat as much as I want without having a control. So the fact that something makes you happy doesn't mean that you should overindulge. Okay. So screen time, if you're talking about screen time, so again, it's a period, it lapses. So you're spending 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, and you don't even take a break. Or some people, even when they are eating, you have phone in your hands, you are eating and with your phone in your hands. So yes, so even if it is something you're doing online, maybe you're working, because these days, all of us work online, you're in one Zoom meeting or the other, you're moving from here, but you should ensure that even within that space, you are not overwhelmed by the things that are happening. So if, for instance, I find myself, I'm working, I can't do without it, okay? And so all my work is on the screen. That is, I'm doing something productive, but I must intermittently, whilst I'm doing that, find some break period in between, or find some, so for instance, I'm sitting here for 2-3 hours, I'll get up, at least there's a phone in my hands or laptop, make some movement, move so that at least I am not stationary and my body is not put in a sedentary state that will also cause me other physical health conditions. So yes, you may be enjoying what you are doing, but you may also want to put in caution that it doesn't result in any other, health challenge for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ma. So I want to hear from Madam Patricia. Please ask your question.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much, Dr. Sena, for the insights that you provide. My issue goes back to the stigma. As you said, the head is part of the body and the mind is part of the body. But we are still in a society where stigma is so much that even thinking about it is not an opportunity for anybody to want to go and seek screening or help. So I wanted to find out, how can we navigate around these social issues, stigma, and so on, even though we know that yes, the mind is part of the body, the head, the mental health is part of the overall health, because that alone we've seen is not really making the impact that it's supposed to make. Thank you.
All right.
If you can share any experiences around that, thank you.
Okay, so I think that I wouldn't go far away from what I earlier said. So you know that you have a condition and you are struggling with it. And regardless of what other people may think, you are the one who is living with the condition. So would you take it that because I am going to be stigmatized, I won't step out? And like I mentioned, if you don't seek early help, just like any other physical condition, you may end up getting into severe states because there are severity levels when it comes to mental health. And the earlier you seek help, the better. Okay. So yes, I will not go out because somebody um, may stigmatize me. It's like HIV/AIDS. When it started, people are still hiding it though, but you must of necessity go to the clinic to go and get medication to help yourself. And so people are going. And so sometimes you can't do anything about what people think about your condition. Okay, you just have to own it. You just have to accept the fact that this is my situation and seek help, regardless of what people may. You see, it is in taking those bold initiatives that we begin to lessen the stigma around mental health. When people are beginning to see groups, psychotherapy groups, they're beginning to see groups that are dealing with mental health and they are willing to talk about it. We begin to see advocacy in that area. So yes, so those of us in the field, when we have the opportunity, we try to, educate the Ghanaian populace that there is nothing wrong about having a mental health illness. Okay, there is nothing wrong about having a mental health illness. And you who may be experiencing the situation may also want to take that advocacy path where you make people believe that, this is my state and there is nothing wrong about it. You may have to work on yourself first. Acceptance. That's what we do, acceptance and commitment therapy. So when you work on yourself and accept the fact that this is me, stigma may not work on you. Okay, you may not be bothered about what people say or what people think because you yourself are thinking that it is bad to have a mental health condition. It is not good. It is a shame. That is how come what people say may make the situation worse for you. So you just want to take that bold initiative by accepting your situation and also educating people. They think so because they are ignorant. For instance, a few days ago, I had to educate someone give a basic education on mental health. And it's a director I'm talking about. Another person just said, "Oh, I didn't know that this is what mental health is all about." Because they think that, oh, if we are saying that someone, is dealing with a mental health condition, that means they are mad. And so the person was able to say, "Okay, I didn't know. Thank you for educating me." And so one person at a time, one group at a time, in our churches, in our corporate rooms, on the streets, in the places where we find ourselves, we make people understand that having a mental health condition doesn't mean that you are mad. And one person at a time, we educate people and get that stigma taken away. But the most important thing is that you have to own your situation, you have to own your condition, and not take the shame for it. That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam. So before I call on Engineer Benenege to ask his question, there's some few questions in the chat box. Let me pick the first one. It's from Dr. Isaac Ejapon. He said, at what point must a person on administered mental drugs go off or stop taking them? The second question from the same person is, it appears the doctors give patients prescribed medicines, prescribed drugs forever. It appears the doctors give the patient prescribed drugs forever.
Okay. So I like this question and I'm smiling at this question because if you have hypertension, you have cancer or some other conditions, some conditions demand that you take medication for the rest of your life. So the same applies to mental health situations. So if you have schizophrenia, you are battling substance abuse, depending on the severity, you may have to be on medication for the rest of your life. And that's the sad part of it. But this is what happens. So just like any other condition, regular reviews would help the doctor know the state you are in and then may adjust your medication in in tune with what you may be experiencing. So if the doctor assesses you at every moment in time and realizes that, oh, now you're okay, your speech is congruent, you're not experiencing hallucinations or any other disabling state for that matter, the doctor may try to possibly adjust your medication. And so, yes, there may be condition where, for instance, if you experience brief psychosis, you may have to take medication for maybe a very short period of time. But if your condition it's very severe, then you may have to be on medication for the rest of your life. So it isn't that they enjoy giving you medication or they enjoy just putting you on medication and you may have to, and they not think about the fact that you have to be taken off it. If the doctor reviews and realizes that you are fine, emotionally, behaviorally, and then psychologically or cognitively, of course, they would bring it down or take you off the medication. But the situation where people go off medication, so if you have bipolar, schizophrenia, and you go off your medication, you are likely to experience relapse. Okay, so where we go to, so there are people who will go to places and come back and say, so when pastor says I'm healed, I've prayed, I've fasted for 21 days, 40 days, I am fine, and so I don't need to throw their medication away. Your severity may go higher, you may experience more severe conditions. And so we advise that if you are giving medication, just as you wouldn't throw your hypertension, you wouldn't throw your hypertension medication away, or diabetes medication away and all that, don't throw your mental health medications away, because if you do that, you will relapse and it will take you a longer time to recover. So please, if the doctor thinks that your medication needs to be reviewed, they will do that. They wouldn't keep you on it for the longer period. So that's my response to that question.
Thank you so much, Madam. So, Madam President, with your permission, we've gone by the time by 1 minute. May we answer all the questions before we end the session?
I think we can allow a few minutes more, and remember the Vice President will be doing the closing remarks as well. Yes, so maybe about 5 or so minutes more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam President. So please, Engineer Ben, please, you have the floor to ask your question before I take the other questions.
Thank you very much. My question goes to Doctor. Sometimes when people have medical or mental problems, they are not aware that they have problems. And it becomes very difficult to convince them or to take them to hospital. The same ways, even if they manage to get to the hospital and they prescribe drugs for them, there comes a time when they refuse to take the drugs. And when you remind him or her and you try to get him to get back on the drug, what they tell you is that I'm all right. I don't have any problem. How do you deal with a situation like that?
All right. Thank you, Engineer, for your question. So I like how you started, that the person, there are some people who may not be aware of their condition. Okay. And sometimes when it comes to the mental health condition that we talk about, the changes in cognition, changes in emotions, and changes in behavior, sometimes some people are not able to even tell that those changes are happening to them. It will take the people who know them and relate with them on a daily basis to be able to tell them that, my dear, I think that some changes are happening to you. These days when you talk, and you don't, the language is not what you're lacking concentration, you're having problems with focusing and all that. So it takes people to draw their attention to that. That is how come it is very important that when people are giving us feedback about our thoughts, our emotions, how we express emotion, our mood changes and all that, our irritability, we should be able to give them some attention and seek to make some change. So this person you're talking about may not even be aware that there are changes occurring with them. Okay, so you have to consistently draw their attention to it. And most people who have mental health conditions are in denial. Okay, they are in denial. They don't want to accept that there is something happening with them. Some people may also have lost touch with reality. I'm sorry, they may have lost touch with reality in the sense that they don't even know their current state. They don't know what it means to be who they used to be. So they've possibly lost touch with reality. So when that person is put on medication, they take it for 1 or 2 days and they think that they're fine. Some people to come to that point where they take the medication for a week or two, like we all do with other conditions, and think that we are fine. So consistently, you have to keep drawing that person's mind to the fact to why they need to take their medication, and you need to give them reason, not condemn them. Because if you tell the person, oh, what bodam is, and yes, you go off, you would have discouraged the person from even taking their medication. But if you try to reason with them, so you need under some condition to reason with the clients and make them, or the individual that you're dealing with, and sometimes take the place of a practitioner to get them to understand why they need to be on medication. Because research also shows that those who have social support systems are able to thrive even with a very severe mental health condition. So you need a lot of patience to be able to consistently remind them to be compliant when it comes to their medication. If you can't do it and you know someone who can do it, you can refer them to someone who can help them understand their condition and then teach them why or how to be compliant in taking their medication. So it's a big challenge, but remember that anytime you're trying to bring such people to a place of understanding, remember that it's a difficult state. And so you need a lot of patience to be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam. So the questions in the chat box, I want to lump them up.
Okay.
3 questions so that we answer them. Then I will invite Mr. Michael Ashon to give us a closing remark before we end the session. So the first question is, what are the most effective early intervention for mental health challenges in the workplace? The second is, where do you go for your mental health checkup? Where do you go for your mental health checkup? And which hospitals accept the psychiatric hospitals? So the person wants to know where they can go without going to the psychiatric hospitals.
Okay.
And last but not the least, what's the difference between mental health, mentally unstable, and completely mad? So those are the questions. Then we'll end the session with a closing remark from Vice
So effective support in the workplace, is that what I get? Or is that what the first question is?
The first question is, what are the most effective early intervention strategies for mental health challenges in the workplace?
Okay. So the early intervention. So currently, in fact, most Ghanaians or workplaces are now implementing a mental health, the employee assistance program, which provides assistance for people dealing with mental health. Early intervention, I would always say, so you are a boss. Like the statistics shows, we have 1 in 4 Ghanaians are likely to experience a mental health condition in their lifetime. And like I mentioned, some people may not even be aware of the changes that are occurring with them. So you find yourself as a director, as a board member, you are finding that someone's behavior is changing, productivity is low, they were productive before and all that. So your work is to just call them in a loving manner, not the one we do in our offices, point to them and say, I think there's something wrong with you, go and see a psychologist. I think that the most effective way is to call that staff to your office as a leader, as a chief CEO or whatever position you hold in there. Call that person to your office and outline the changes that you're observing with them. So I'm observing changes in your thoughts these days. You are doing this these days. You are making a lot of mistakes with your work. So draw the attention to your observation, the things that you are seeing going wrong with them. And then if you have the skill, provide some intervention for them, give them some time to change. If not, you may refer them to, if you have a counseling unit in your organization, refer them to that place. If not, there are lots of hospitals now that operate counseling units. So RIDGE, there's a counseling unit there with professional counselors and the psychologists. Lekma Hospital, there is one. Accra Psychiatric Hospital, even though we don't want to go there, it's very close to Accra in the central business district where a lot of offices are. So Accra Psychiatric Hospital doesn't mean that you have a mental health condition. They have psychotherapy sections in there. They have psychoeducation in there. So you can just refer them to that place to seek some help. They may not necessarily be mad to go there. And I also heard someone asking about what to do, check up. Where do you check up? Again, go to any of these mental health facilities and request that you want to take a mental health status examination. They will help you. Nobody will look at you with the double eye. They will help you take that mental status examination and then give you the results that will help you. And then the third question, it's mental health. What is the difference between mental health and mental what? I heard quite a number of.
Yeah, so the person wants to know the difference between mental health, mentally unstable, and completely mad. The difference.
Okay, so if you are completely mad, that means, so the conditions that we call completely mad is schizophrenia. So you have lost touch with reality totally. Okay, but even for such people with a good social support system, they are able to try. Now, if you may be mentally unstable at any moment in your life, so if you experience bereavement, maybe accident, maybe you had a childhood trauma, so anything that you experience momentarily that, it's overwhelming for your cognitive ability, overwhelming for your emotions, can cause you to have some mental instability briefly. So we have brief psychosis that it is called brief because momentarily you may have delusion. So you lose someone, you find yourself just run into the streets or go naked. That is momentarily being in a state of insanity. It doesn't mean that you have a mental health condition. So madness is when you have lost total touch with reality. You are hallucinating, you have maybe visual hallucination, you are seeing things that do not exist, you are hearing voices, auditory hallucination, you're hearing voices that you shouldn't hear, or you have been experiencing things that are moving on in your body and all that. So those are, or you are throwing away your clothes, gone naked, you become unkept, you're unable to keep touch with bathing and the regular things that you have done on a normal basis. So those are the things that we would say that someone is mad. But for briefly being in a state of insanity, we all do experience it once in a lifetime, and we are able to come out of it. But if you're unable to come out of it and it progresses to other things, that is when it becomes difficult and may require professional assistance. So that's basically what it is. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ma.
Celestia, I know you're about ready to call the Vice President, but I just wanted to say this, to thank Dr. Sena personally for doing this. The notice was extremely short and she took up the challenge. So this is my personal thank you. Thank you very much. Celestia, over to you.
Pleasure, Madam President. And thank you for pushing me and for the opportunity.
Thank you, Madam President. And thank you, Dr. Sena Owusu-Gibson. So we invite the Vice President in the person of Mr. Michael Justice Ashon to give us the closing remarks before we draw the curtain.
Thank you, Celestia. And good afternoon, everyone. And permit me to thank Madam President for the opportunity to say a few words to close this very insightful and professionally delivered session. Thank you very much, Dr. Sena Owusu-Gibson, for sharing your expertise. And I also thank all of you participants for your active participation and especially the insightful questions. Please let me add that Dr. Sena is also a member of IoD Ghana, and we are so proud of the work she has been doing for Mother Ghana. Indeed, this webinar is part of IoD-Ghana's activities to mark this year's Women Month, dubbed the Pink Month. And it is also part of our year-long activities to mark IoD-Ghana's 25th anniversary celebrations. Today, we have explored why our mental health matters. And we have learned that its importance transcends our homes and our offices, even into our boardrooms. We have been taught that we can do many things when we notice some changes in the way we do things, or even suspect that we have any mental health condition or challenges. The advice here is to seek early help. We all sometimes experience some situations which become too overwhelming. It's just natural. And in those situations, we are advised to seek help from professionals, but that doing so doesn't necessarily mean that we have mental health situation. The importance of sleep, exercise, hobbies, and learning new activities have also been highlighted, among others, as being important contributors to having healthy mental state. Most importantly, we have been advised to limit screen time, especially social media, as those may cause us emotional stress, which may affect our mental health. Now, as directors and C-suite executives, we need to learn to delegate work, as that enables us to take break and reduce the stress on us as individuals and save our mental health. She has advised us that just as we care for our physical health, we must also tend to our mental health. And that's a very important advice for me. Ladies and gentlemen, as we close, please remember that the conversation around mental health doesn't end here. Let's take the knowledge we've gained today and turn it into action. Be an advocate, start a conversation, and prioritize your own well-being and that of those around you. On behalf of the President and Chair of the Governing Council of IoD Ghana, I wish all of you a mentally healthy and a peaceful rest of the week. Shalom and thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ashon, for that brief and in-depth closing remarks. So just to let the participant know that the recording link will be shared on the platforms where you got the link to register. We'll share the recordings. And please watch out for the next seminar link on the pages very soon. Thank you so much. And it's a goodbye from all of us. On behalf of the President, the Vice, the Governing Council, the CEO, and the Secretariat entirely, say thank you and have a mentally sound day.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.